what's the confusion about this?
The Prophet ﷺ, he used to forbid people from going to the graves. And then later, he ﷺ permitted for them to go. And he said, كنت قد نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور فزوروها. I used to forbid you from going to visit the graves, but now go visit the graves.
Okay.
فإنها تذكركم الآخرة, because it reminds you of the hereafter. So the Prophet ﷺ said that now I give you the permissibility to go visit the graves, and he mentioned the wisdom behind that, and that is to be reminded of the hereafter. So when a person goes to the grave, he is not going to the grave to seek blessings, because that's against what the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and nobody whatsoever can bring a clear evidence that proves otherwise.
Okay.
The Prophet ﷺ used to visit the graves, the companions radiallahu anhum, for two reasons. One of which is for oneself to remember the hereafter, to see the reality of this life. At the end, this is nothing but just a pit in the ground. So to benefit oneself by remembering the hereafter. The second thing is to benefit the deceased by making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by visiting the person that is deceased, and to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit the deceased. And visiting the dead people, it reaches them one way or the other, we know that. So this is why a person would do that, to visit the graves. Other than that, is not permissible whatsoever.
Okay.
To seek blessings, to be there in that spot, thinking that this righteous man, his spot is a virtuous one. So to sit there, even if a person would say, I'm not asking the deceased, I'm asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but this is a blessed spot. This is all innovations in the deen.
Okay.
And Muslims are forbidden from doing these types of things, because it gets them closer to the shirk.
Right.
Where the shirk, the roots of it, when people start to exalt and to give greatness to other human beings, to the deceased, especially among them, the righteous ones, and then after generations they would worship them besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, and also, Sheikh, when we're talking about the graves, and you made mention to make, when you go there, you can make dua to Allah for the person inside of the grave. At the same time, can I not stay at my house and make the same dua? Does it not carry the same virtue and the same power?
Well, a person staying at home and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the deceased, inshallah it reaches. But since the Prophet ﷺ used to visit the graves,
right,
and Aisha radiallahu anha would go visit the grave of her brother and so on, so there is something extra that the deceased, it reaches them that someone visited them, and to also make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a good thing for a person to do that, as long as it's done in the right way.
And also, Sheikh, you made mention of the hadith of the Prophet said for Zuru, go and visit the graves. Does that plurality include men and women?
This has differences of opinions among the ulama, whether it's women permissible for them to visit the graves or not, because there's other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, لَعْنَ اللَّهُ زَوَّرَاتُ الْقُبُورُ وَزَائِرَاتُ الْقُبُورُ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses the women, those who frequently visit the graves, or those who visit the graves. So other ulama, they said, but it meant for those who frequently visit the graves, and the hadith says for everybody. And there's an evidence that Aisha radiallahu anha, she visited the grave of her brother after the Prophet ﷺ. So it's better to avoid that, and that's where it can be applied for women.
Okay.
If they do not go to the graveyard for the sake of Allah, and they stay home and they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's definitely better for the deceased, and to avoid mixing with men, and to avoid being overly emotional. Women, they tend to be more emotional, so they can lose it basically and scream or do things of that nature. So it's definitely, to avoid even the differences of opinions, is to stay away and not to visit the graves for sure.